Hi, I'm Candace.
And I'm Ripley.
And this is Comicsplaining,
the show where we're together in the same room again.
Yeah, for the first time since episode 1.
Yeah, if anybody's been getting annoyed with our audio quality, it should improve some now, and hopefully we'll be able to stop talking directly over one another at all times.
Yes, that will hopefully happen.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, what are we in for today?
Today, first, we're reading Journey into Mystery number 87, which came out in December of 1962. And it's writer Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby.
Stan and Jack.
Mm-hmm.
What we're used to.
The dynamic duo.
This cover, there's a lot going on here.
Yes.
I didn't know that electronics were Thor's weakness. That sounds actually fairly counterintuitive considering everything.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what they're implying here, because it says, these chains are electronically treated. I cannot break them. Which, first of all, what does electronically treated mean? I don't think that's a thing.
By all means, I've got no idea.
And second of all, I don't understand why electricity
would ever be his weakness.
Right? Doesn't make sense.
Also, he's the prisoner of the Reds, so I can only assume this is Comrade Igor or something with the strong jaw.
Yeah, something like that. I like their weird guns.
Huh.
That's pretty much all I can say about that.
Comrade Igor here on the pump-up page again.
This is like borderline fetish material.
It really... I wasn't going to say it, but now that you have... Yeah.
We start not with Thor, but with the wife of some random scientist who comes home to find a note that her husband has written her, which is fantastic. It says, "Farewell, I no longer believe in our American way of life. I'm going behind the Iron Curtain to serve the Reds."
John.
Love, John.
No love.
No.
He has no love for Sylvia.
No. This is being reported on the news. Apparently several scientists have defected recently, and this is weird. So Don is like, that's weird. I bet Thor could do something about that. So he's gonna go to Washington and talk to his friend Colonel Harrison. Why Donald Blake is friends with the Colonel, I have no idea.
You know, sometimes you just meet a wide variety of people. Maybe they're friends from high school or something.
I can guarantee you they're not.
Is he, like, really old?
No, but for reasons.
Okay.
So Jane is, like, doting on him, making sure he has his pills and his vitamins and whatever. And then she's also fantasizing about Thor the whole time.
Oh my god, she's worse than Aunt May.
Yeah.
Here are your allergy pills and vitamin tablets. Don't forget to take them. And be sure to stay out of drafts. You know how easily you catch cold.
Yeah. So Donald Blake, apparently, on top of being super skinny and having a limp, is just generally has a weak constitution. She just takes care of him, I suppose. He flies to D.C. on a plane, and he talks to this colonel, who does have white hair, so I guess he's old. But basically, Don says what he's going to do is he's going to set himself up as bait by pretending that he's invented a biological weapon. And then the Reds, well, they'll come after him, basically. This is his plan. And this general's like, why are you doing this? And Don's like, I can't tell him. It's because I'm Thor. My bum leg kept me out of the Korean War. And this is my chance to make up for it. To serve my country.
Aww.
There's a lot to unpack with that one. So, after this meeting, the colonel agrees to this plan, even though it's absolutely ridiculous.
Why would he be developing a biological weapon anyway, and why would they buy this? He's not that kind of doctor.
Right. It's very strange. After this meeting, Don Blake leaves, and instead of taking another plane back to New York, he just turns into Thor and flies there himself.
Why didn't he? I was wondering why he didn't turn into Thor and fly there himself in the first place.
Save on airfare. Like, what's the point? So he goes back home, and he sets to work his plan to fake that he's developed a biological weapon is to, like, lock himself in his office with these weird machines and pretend that he's inventing something and not tell Jane what he's doing. I feel like he's leaning a little bit too far into it. But it gets reported in the newspaper, and the next day there's a photographer there to see him. This photographer comes in and he starts to take Dawn's picture. But wait, the camera is actually releasing a gas that causes Dawn to be mind controlled. First of all, that's not how gas works. If he was releasing a gas, it would affect him too. The photographer, that is.
Maybe he has, like, filters up his nose or something.
Sure. Under this mind control gas, the photographer orders Dawn to write a goodbye note and then leave the building and get on a plane to go behind the Iron Curtain. So they're in Russia. And Dawn wakes up after they've taken him to this fortress or whatever and put him in this dungeon where he sees the other American scientists. And the American scientists tell him that they tricked them and brought them there so that they would build weapons for the Russians, which was predictable. Dawn is like, now it's time for me to change into Thor, but if I do, these men will see me. My secret identity will be revealed. When this has never stopped him before, if you recall.
He frets about it and then he does it anyways, typically.
Yeah, so conveniently, as he's thinking about this, the Reds come in and they're like, we're gonna place you all in separate cells now, but not earlier.
Yeah, that's just really bizarrely convenient.
Yes. Like, it's very convenient that they put them all in the same cell so that Dawn could confirm that the scientists were there, and then they're going to move them into separate cells so that Dawn can turn into Thor. Like, okay.
This is the kind of shit that makes the Silver Age so corny.
Yes, very corny.
I don't mind it, but it's really corny.
So once he's in the separate cell, Dawn turns into Thor. And here's his plan for getting out of the cell. I'll break out of here by spinning my hammer fast enough to create shockwaves.
But not fast enough to create antimatter particles.
No. This is a very fine line. The faster the hammer spins, the greater the shockwaves build up until finally they're powerful enough to shatter the stone walls.
Also, not fast enough to travel through time.
Yes. So, my question here is, why couldn't he just smack the wall with his hammer to break it? Why did he have to do this convoluted thing with spinning to create shockwaves?
Maybe he just thought it would be cool and fun.
I mean, that's fair, I guess. Thor does a lot of spinning. Do you think he gets dizzy?
No.
No?
I think that must just be one of the things that comes with being a thunder god.
You just don't get dizzy anymore.
Yeah.
Alright. So he gets out of the cell, and... Are you okay?
Yeah, he carries a hammer, like our hammer and sickle emblem. Is he one of us?
I was just about to say that. So the Reds see him, and one of them is like, says that. There's nothing more I can really say about that. And his boss is like, no, you fucking idiot.
Then his boss is like, he's our enemy! Stop him!
Yes. But before the guards could fire, the mighty Thor rubs his hands against the magic hammer, creating such intense friction that it emits sparks as hot and blinding as a blast furnace.
What?
Again, why not just hit them with the hammer?
Where the fuck did that come from?
I don't know. Why is he so adverse to hitting things with his hammer? I don't understand. That's what it's for. So anyway.
Oh my god.
He gets past the guards and he keeps going down, but he passes by a laser tripwire that he doesn't see, and a trapdoor opens in the floor underneath him, and he falls into this pit with a bunch of sharks in it.
And then he makes literal Sharknado.
He does make Sharknado, so his plan is once again to spin right round, baby, right round. He creates a whirlpool to spin the sharks around, and then while the whirlpool is going, he climbs out somehow. He reckons that by the time the whirlpool spins itself out, the sharks will be too dizzy to menace anyone else. He keeps going, searching the fortress, and he comes into this, I don't know, lab area, and this dude is like, if you don't stop and surrender, I will destroy the dungeon level and kill all the scientists that are there.
By smashing it. Why would you build this like this?
Yeah.
I mean, they've shown that they have no problem with gas, so why not just gas them or something?
Right.
Instead, you're going to make either walls or a ceiling or a floor that smash.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems like a lot of engineering that's really bizarrely unnecessary.
Yeah, it is. Thor decides that the only thing he can do is surrender instead of once again hitting them with his hammer. They start chaining him up, and these chains are electronically treated. Even you will not be able to sever them. So they're like, alright, Thor's chained up. Let's go do some other stuff. Oh, they want to go find their leader. So the dude runs off to find their leader to show him that he captured Thor. And they all leave because I guess they just figured Thor can't get out, so it's fine. But little do they know, after 60 seconds pass, Thor turns back into Don Blake. And Don Blake, being, I don't know, about half the size of Thor, just slips right out of the chains. And then grabs the hammer again. So that worked out, I guess. So he goes down to the dungeon, and he gets the scientists. And there's a random barrel on fire.
I see it, but why?
I don't know. I thought it was worth noting because
it's fucking weird.
It's really weird. There's no reason for it to be there.
Like I just stumbled into some fucking Half-Life level.
Like, you know how in your communist dungeons you have random barrels of fire.
Maybe this is not a barrel, and this is just a really weird angle on, like, a wall sconce. Which I'm not sure why they would have a wall sconce either. They should probably just have electric lights, but it seems more plausible than a flaming barrel.
Thor's plan to get out of here is to dig a tunnel underneath the fortress by spinning his hammer super duper fast and smashing the dirt out of the way.
Imagine you're these scientists getting hit in the face with a shit ton of rock and dirt and shit.
Yes, but they're all amazed at how fast he's digging.
Instead of like, my eyes, my face, my existence.
So he manages to know exactly how far to dig this tunnel to get them out of the fortress somehow. And they all get out and they're like, wait, where's Dr. Blake? He's not with us. And Thor's like, yeah, you guys stay here, I'll go get him. So he goes back in, and he comes back in right in time to meet up with the communists. And this dude is like, wait until you see him. He's bound and helpless as a child. And Thor's like, not quite, comrade. So they're like, what the fuck? Thor's out of his chains. So Thor summons a thunderstorm in this enclosed space.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. So this brings up some interesting questions. Like, can Thor just summon a thunderstorm inside of a room?
Yes, he just did.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Asked and answered, I guess. So Thor summons a thunderstorm and he calls out to Odin to destroy the entire fortress. And Odin's like, yeah, sure. So,
I mean, why couldn't he just do that by himself with his lightning?
I would say that he probably did because Odin didn't actually answer him. The storm just destroyed the building. So I think Thor did that, personally. But
so Thor was your helpless prisoner, was he? Imbecile! You will pay for this blundering!
Yeah, so they're all arguing after the place is turned to rubble, and Thor's like, I could capture them all, but I won't. I'll let them punish each other. Like, what are you talking about? So he runs off and turns back into Don Blake and goes to meet the scientists. And now they're all stranded in Russia. Traveling undercover, the Americans work their way to the coast, and some random Russian citizens sneak them onto a ship to America because freedom or whatever.
Just remember that even in a slave nation, the spirit of freedom never dies.
Ah, those commies.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. So they get back to America, and Jane is...
So Thor freed you all and then destroyed the fortress? Is it any wonder that I'm so in love with him? She doesn't even try to keep it quiet this time.
No.
Blathering this out loud.
Yeah, she's like totally head over heels for Thor, who she's never actually met at this point. Girl has the biggest parasocial crush.
She's got like a boy band crush on Thor.
Exactly. That's the end of the issue. Oh boy.
Guess who's back?
Back again.
Loki's back.
Tell your friend.
Just what our podcast needed, a fucking Eminem reference.
Yes, that's exactly what we needed. Journey into Mystery number 88. January 1963. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee.
And Larry Lieber.
Yep.
I did notice the other day that on the Thor movies, one of the special credits was Larry Lieber, so I am really curious where his writing input comes into this.
Yeah, I'm sure we could look that up.
Well, yeah.
If we ever remember to.
We could.
We could.
Or we could just, not do that.
Okay, I actually really love this cover. It's really funny. Heed my words, Thor. Though both of you are my sons, you must defeat the evil Loki for the sake of mankind. Nothing can save you, Thunder God, for now I know the secret of your hammer.
I shall not fail, noble Odin. No matter what the cost, Loki shall not menace Earth.
So this is like a page in and of itself, basically.
It really is. We've got a full dialogue interchange here.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
Thor's face is just really funny here. He looks very concerned.
He does look very concerned. Because it's the vengeance of Loki, so of course he's concerned.
I don't think the purple is working here with this gold.
No, it doesn't look very good. Once again, Loki, most dangerous of the Norse gods, returns to give the mighty Thor his greatest challenge. We start by recapping the last issue that Loki was in. Thor delivered Loki back to Asgard by attaching him to his hammer and throwing it really hard. And I guess as punishment for going and fighting Thor, Odin grounded him, basically.
Well, that's better than what he did last time. He
yes.
turned him into a fucking tree.
Yeah, so relatively mild. You're just grounded for the rest of time. No big. Loki is like, okay, but then he gets annoyed because he can't go anywhere. And he wants revenge.
Dad won't even let me go to the mall.
No, Dad, I want to go to Hot Topic. He creates, some kind of scrying mist, basically, out of some leaves and sap.
420, blaze it.
Yeah, he blazes it to spy on Thor, and he sees Thor from the last issue, actually, in the Dungeon of the Reds with the chains. And he sees Thor in the chains, and then turning back into Don Blake and getting out of the chains, and then grabbing the hammer. And Loki is able to finally realize that when Thor doesn't have the hammer, he turns into a human. Loki's like, cool, that's his weakness, I can go. But wait, I can't leave, so I need to come up with a plan to leave. Loki's plan to leave is to turn into a snake and then go on the Bifrost. As if Heimdall, the dude who literally has eyes that see everything in the universe, would not notice a weird random snake.
Well, maybe it's just a snake that wandered onto the Bifrost. I mean, he changes back into Loki once he's past Heimdall, which is not a great sign, but...
Yeah. I feel like at this point, they hadn't quite realized that Heimdall could hear and see everything in the universe, including things that happen a little bit over the hill.
Right. And also including Loki turning into a snake.
Loki turning into a snake and then slithering under his feet. And then turning back into Loki.
Small note, I do like that we're getting a little more of that serialization going on here, too, though, where we're referring to the things that happened in the last issue. Even if they aren't super relevant, it's nice to have a little bit of a tie-in that we have a forward progression.
Yeah, it is nice. Loki gets back to Earth and takes the disguise of an old man and goes into Don Blake's office and hypnotizes Jane They give her some kind of command that we don't know about yet. It's going to be revealed later. And then they go inside Don Blake's office, and once they're in, even though they shapeshifted earlier to turn into a snake, apparently this time they did not shapeshift, because they pull off a mask. Unless they'd shapeshifted into that and then shapeshifted pulling off a mask just for the reveal.
Dramatic. Honestly, though, there are so many people with hyper-realistic masks in the Marvel Universe, especially in these early days, Scooby-Doo style, where it's just like, somebody is making bank selling these hyper-realistic face masks.
Yeah, you know, what I gotta ask is, if he hypnotized Jane to get into the office and then immediately took off this mask to reveal that they are Loki, why didn't they just go in as Loki?
I mean, I know she also is in love with Loki, bizarrely, but I doubt she would recognize him with a hat.
With a hat, yeah. That's the qualifying factor. So seeing Loki, Dawn immediately turns into Thor and is like, how'd you find out my secret identity? And Loki's like, man, I won't tell you. And challenges him to a fight. Meet me in Central Park in an hour. Behind the gym after school. And Thor's like, okay. Like, why? Just fight here.
Again, I have to wonder if this fight is worth anything, because last time I'm pretty sure the fight was just for the sake of tricking him up into the air so he could helicopter hypnotize him.
Yeah, fighting isn't really Loki's thing.
Yeah.
Generally.
So he's fallen for this shit again.
Yeah, he always does.
I mean, he's gonna wreak havoc one way or another. Why even bother?
Yeah. Loki, I guess, just leaves, and then a couple minutes later, Dawn leaves, and he tells Jane that he'll be out for the rest of the day. And Jane thinks, after he leaves, I must leave too, as I have been commanded. So we see the command that Loki gave her. Thor flies over to Central Park to meet Loki, and they start fighting. But just as they do, Jane gets there, and Loki, as part of his trap, turns a tree into a tiger and makes it attack Jane. Oh yeah, I should mention, when they started fighting, Thor threw his hammer at Loki, and then as the hammer was flying at Loki, Jane arrived, and then the tiger. So there's a very specific sequence of events here. So as Jane is being attacked by this tiger, the hammer is flying back to Thor, so Loki makes him decide either he can protect Jane or he can catch the hammer.
One would think that a hammer would come in very handy for protecting Jane.
Yeah, apparently he can't catch the hammer and then go fight the tiger. He decides to protect Jane, of course. So he goes to fight the tiger, but it takes him too long, and he doesn't get back to the hammer in time. He turns back into Don Blake.
Okay, so his muscles are fast enough that he can spin his hammer quick enough to travel through fucking time, but he can't KO this fucking tiger?
Yeah.
Inside of a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, alright.
Sounds legit. Now that he's turned into Don Blake again, he needs to get his hammer, so Loki puts a force field around the hammer. Which begs the question, if the hammer was lying on the ground this entire time, why couldn't Loki do that earlier, while he was fighting the tiger? Don Blake is panicking, he's like, I can't get the hammer back, and Loki's like, fuck yes, I won, now I can just do whatever I want. So he turns into a bird and flies away. And Dawn wakes up Jane, and takes her home. Meanwhile, Loki begins their rampage. First of all, by turning several people into blank beings.
As opposed to negative beings.
Yes, it's very similar to being a negative being, because the effects are purely visual. It doesn't seem to do anything else.
But you can't spin your hammer quick enough to make antimatter particles.
No. So basically, these people are turned into, like, they're all completely blank white with, like, a black outline.
Very convenient, Jack.
Yeah. And they're all freaking out, and Loki around the corner is like, listen to the fools panic. I'll wait another few minutes before I turn them normal. What
was the point? Just to be silly? I mean, cool, but
so
why am I supposed to be bothered by the fact that he's doing this, really?
Exactly.
It's just like a silly prank.
And they're literally saying that they're going to turn these people back to normal, so it's not even a lasting consequence.
Right.
So then they turn into a bird and they go to a different city, and this time they're going to tamper with non-living objects. So they turn everything in the city into candy.
Oh no.
Oh no, right? I don't believe it. There's no such thing as a car made of ice cream. The sun is melting my convertible. Stop licking my bicycle.
Yeah, stop licking my bicycle is accompanied by just an entire pack of dogs.
I like this one that's standing on his back legs.
I like the one with the spot around his eye.
And meanwhile, Loki is sitting over there on a wall, just like, this is funny. I haven't had this much fun in centuries. Like, they're literally just doing dumb pranks and having a fucking whale of a time.
Yeah, like, why am I supposed to care about this?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I don't get why the fuck this is supposed to be some big threat.
Well, here is the crux of the whole thing. So the next thing Loki does is they go across the continent towards the Arctic, and they find a Russian bomber doing a weapons test. So this plane drops a bomb down, and Loki exercises some kind of magic on the bomb to make it not blow up. So the Russians are like, it was a dud. Like, okay.
Loki and Magneto, both actually much cooler than anyone thinks.
Right. So this is Loki's rampage of destruction. They turned some people into blank people for a couple minutes. They turned a couple cars into ice cream, and they prevented a swift end to the Cold War. How am I supposed to be seeing that Loki is this great evil force right now? They're just, like, having
also,
a laugh.
it wasn't, even from the American perspective, it wasn't even like an American weapons test that he threatened.
Exactly. Don Blake is trying to figure out how to get his hammer back so he can fight Loki. The entire American people are freaking out, and the American army goes to attack Loki because they have to.
Oh, this is fucking awesome.
This is fantastic. So they all have, like, these guns and stuff, and Loki's like, fools, you cannot match those toys against the magic of Loki. And he gives all the weapons wings, so they fly away.
I want to make this, like, my fucking icon, this Glock with wings.
It's really good. It's really good.
I mean, the bazooka is good, but, like, harder to isolate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, this also isn't really a big deal. It's funny. It's humorous.
You guys got more of those.
Right, they got so many more of those. And at the same moment, Don Blake gets the idea. He finally figures out how he's gonna stop Loki. The next day, the dynamic doctor puts his desperate plan into effect. I guess Loki is just, like, hanging out on Earth for days at a time right now.
Heimdall hasn't tattled on him.
Heimdall did not tell, and Odin apparently did not notice that Loki was missing. Which says a lot about Odin, I think.
Okay, so I gotta say about the Heimdall thing, because this will absolutely continue coming up.
Yes, Heimdall.
Heimdall. When we went to go see, it was either Infinity War.
It was Ragnarok.
It was Ragnarok. No, you're right. It was Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
And this lady in one of the rows kept yelling about Heimdall.
She was so into Heimdall, and she loved him so much. Every time he was on the screen, she was like, "Fuck it up, Heimdall! Get their asses!"
There's no other way to pronounce Heimdall now. He's just Heimdall.
That's his name. He's Heimdall.
That lady was an icon.
I love that lady so much. I wish I knew who she was. Basically, the newspapers are reporting that Thor vows to defeat Loki before the end of the week. Which is like, if Thor could defeat Loki, why doesn't he do it right now? But also, again, why is this a big deal? So Loki's like, Thor, but that's impossible. Without the hammer, that puny doctor can never again become the thunder god. And the hammer is surrounded by my impenetrable force field. Nothing can get through it. Yet, what if I am wrong? What if he discovered a way? I must find out.
Up from underneath the force field?
I assume it's a box.
Maybe.
Okay, basically, this gives Loki enough doubt that they have to go find out what happened. And when they get there, they see Thor. And Thor's like, "Welcome, Loki, I've been expecting you." And Loki's like, "What the fuck? you're not supposed to have your hammer, and deactivates the force field, which, by the way, I guess the hammer and the force field have just been in the middle of Central Park for like a week.
It seemed pretty easy to see through before.
Yeah. So Loki deactivates the force field, but just at that moment, Don Blake jumps out and reaches for the hammer because the Thor that was there was a plastic dummy.
Where does one get a plastic dummy of Thor, and for what purposes are they selling that?
Let's not discuss it. So, Don Blake grabs the hammer and turns into Thor again. And Loki's like, fuck, I gotta get out of here. So, they turn into a pigeon and blend in with a flock of other pigeons.
Loki's got a thing about pigeons.
Yes, I noticed that. So...
like, last time there was Loki astride 2 pigeons, and he turned into a pigeon several times this issue. And now he is several pigeons, or perhaps one pigeon with a roost of several other pigeons.
It's the second one. Loki is one pigeon. So Thor's like, I can't determine which one is Loki, so...
But what if Loki was a hive mind of pigeons?
That would be incredible. So...
that might explain how he was flying on the pigeons. He's just secretly been several pigeons all along.
See, that's the kind of shape-shifting that I love to see. Just... silly, goofy shit. Thor's plan to figure out which of the pigeons is Loki is to run across the park and buy a bag of peanuts.
If there's anything pigeons like, it's peanuts.
Yeah, and apparently Loki doesn't care about the peanuts, so they don't pay attention to the peanuts, but all the other birds do. And
they're all gathered around the peanuts, except that one who has more important things on his mind.
Yeah, so that's how Thor knows which one Loki is. So, Loki flies away, which begs the question, why didn't they do that earlier? Thor grabs the net from a tennis court.
Rude.
Yeah, and flies after Loki and catches them in a net, flies down to the ground, and lets them out of the net just long enough for Earth people to mock them, and then puts them back in the net to fly back to Asgard.
Why not just send him via Hammer Express again?
I don't know. But Odin is there, wearing a weird hat, and he says, I am most pleased to see my favorite son again. Wow, harsh. But as for Loki, I know not what to do with him. He grows more wily, more dangerous, more uncontrollable each hour. We must pray that the world will never see the day when his power exceeds that of the mighty Thor.
Next time he might make the buildings into ice cream, too.
Oh no. We'll never be able to stop him then. We have time to do a 3rd issue of Thor, which is exciting for me because I love Thor. So we're going to go ahead and do Journey into Mystery number 89 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
And Larry Lieber.
Journey
into Mystery, starring the mighty Thor, the most colorful superhero of all, and the most dubious claim. Maybe. Alright, let's see. Spider-Man, red and blue or black.
2 colors.
Okay. Iron Man, red and yellow.
2 colors.
The Incredible Hulk, green or gray and purple.
2 colors.
Fantastic Four, blue and white, and I guess it would really be cheating to count skin or hair color.
Yeah. 1 color. White is not a color.
Wait, what about Ant-Man? Red and... is it black or blue?
I think it's black.
Okay. 2 colors.
Thor has blue, red, and yellow.
Okay. No, you win. Thor is the most colorful superhero of all.
He is. He's got the shit on lock.
Okay, you win.
His costume and whole color thing is actually very similar to Superman, weirdly.
Maybe a little. I guess I can see it with the cape.
Red cape, blue outfit, yellow trimmings.
Underpants on the outside.
Underpants on the outside. We have the Thunder God and the Thug.
This sounds like a bad fanfic romance.
It does.
Your name. Thor falls in love with your name, a criminal.
Our story opens with the mighty god of thunder streaking through the sky after the completion of his most recent adventure. He's coming up to his office, which is in a big building. It's in New York, so it's like a skyscraper.
No shit.
Yeah. He's coming up, and these 2 dudes are in his waiting room. They're conveniently talking about Thor, And then they look out the window and they see Thor, and Thor's like, oh shit, those guys in my waiting room saw me, so if I go in now, they'll know that I'm there. So instead he ducks into this room full of mannequins.
That he has.
That is in the building for some reason.
Okay, they're not his mannequins.
No. We just went over. He doesn't own the building. He just has an office in it. He dresses up one of the mannequins as Thor. I don't know why this mannequin store had a Thor costume on hand, but they did, I guess.
I appreciate his ability to sew, because he used some of the material to make another Thor costume for this mannequin to wear. So that's pretty impressive, especially how quick he did it.
We already know he can move faster than light, so...
That's fair. But can the sewing machine?
No, I don't think so. He hand-sewed it. I've done enough hand-sewing to know that's an overlooked art form.
Yes.
Anyway, so he dresses up this mannequin like Thor, and then he launches it out the fucking window at, like, Mach speed. So his patients see what looks like Thor flying away. And he says, the dummy will come down over the open sea, where it won't injure anyone. Imagine being on the other end of where that dummy is landing.
Imagine you're just some poor fishing boat out on the sea, fishing for seafood, and then a fucking mannequin comes flying at light speed or what the fuck ever and just sinks your boat.
A mannequin dressed like Thor. That would be a weird-ass day. So the patients are all looking at this dummy flying, and Thor is able to slip into the office and then go into his office, which is separate from the waiting room, and turn back into Don Blake. And at this point, we're going to recap the origin of Thor for 2 pages. But on the next page, we see Jane Foster.
Oh, that Thor! What a man! I bet he'd notice a gal who was right under his nose.
And although he's big and strong, I'd love to look after him. He'd complain about my fussing, but I know that he'd secretly enjoy it.
You needn't bother.
Nonsense, your hammer will look more impressive polished.
I'd be ashamed if my boss were seen in public with a wrinkled cloak.
I never gave it a thought before.
You'll feel lots cooler during the summer with your hair shorter.
I feel better already. This is ridiculous. But let us leave Jane Foster to her daydreams and return to the present once more. We find a mob leader named Thug Thatcher leaving a courthouse. He was on trial for muscling in on the steel industry because they caught him selling substandard steel, and now he's going to prison.
Wow, that actually worked.
Yeah. They load him into the prison car.
Octopus of crime has many tentacles.
The octopus of crime has many tentacles. Because there's a car with a bunch of mobsters waiting for the car that's transporting Thrug. Which is just a car, not like a prisoner transport or anything. In fact, the mobsters are in like a truck.
Yeah, it looks like almost an armored truck.
Which is weird. It should be the other way around, I think.
You would think.
They smash into the car that Thug is in, and the cops and the mobsters get into a firefight. And this is right outside of Donald Blake's office, by the way. So Jane notices this and tells Don. And I guess in the firefight, they blasted out the cops' tires so they can't follow them anymore. But Thug Thatcher, their boss, gets shot in the shoulder. So these 2 guys are like, we gotta find him a doctor. Oh, how convenient, there's one right here. So they go into Don Blake's office and they tie up Jane and they tell him that if he doesn't come with them, they're going to hurt her, basically. Very standard. So they take him to their boss and they order him to treat Thug. And Don is like, I'll treat you, not because of your threats, but because it's my duty as a physician.
And that is his oath.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. It's a thing. So this dude takes Don's cane while he's working, which is notable because he can't turn into Thor now.
He's got doctoring to do anyway.
Yeah.
Turn into Thor and beat up the criminals after you help this guy. You're a doctor. That's your job.
Well, that's what he does, is he helps him, he takes the bullet out and cleans the wound. And then the mob boss, predictably, is like, well, now that you fixed me up, we can't let you leave. Kill him, boys. And he's like, well, shit, I'm gonna die because I can't get my cane back from this dude.
He's got very feminine eyes.
He does. And his eyes are green for some reason. But wait, even though I haven't the body of Thor, I still have his brain, his thought processes. What? So I think this is the first time where readers or listeners might start to question what exactly is the line between Thor and Don Blake.
I question that frequently.
It's a good question, and you're not going to get the answer for a long time, so...
Oh, fuck you.
If I concentrate intensely, perhaps I can establish mental contact with Odin. Desperately, the doomed doctor focuses his thoughts and sends his plea upwards, beyond Earth, across the rainbow. And this is all a very long-winded way of saying that he said a prayer.
Yeah.
They could just do that. In response to Don's prayer, Odin summons fire and lightning and transforms them into a force wave, which just kind of like shocks this dude's hand a little bit, so he drops the cane.
That was so over the top for the reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it literally hurts him a little bit. Like he gets a hand cramp. So Don lunges for the cane and once again turns into Thor in front of these people.
Right. You would think that these would be some people you would very much not want to turn into Thor in front of.
No, he totally did it. And he's like, got to make up an excuse fast. Good thing I was passing by and saw this little scene. I've tossed your intended victim to safety, and now I'll deal with you.
Bullshit.
So much bullshit. So he starts fighting these dudes. It's notable that the first thing he does is not hit any of them, as once again, Thor never hits people with his hammer. But he smacks a floorboard.
And knocks a guy up onto a moose head that's mounted on the wall.
Very goofy Looney Tunes style shenanigans.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
So all these dudes take out their guns, and they're like, we're gonna shoot Thor from across this table. Thor once again uses his hurricane breath to...
Once again, drape a cloth on someone.
He takes them outside and hooks them onto a tree, I guess. The sequence of events here is very weird. But meanwhile, the mob boss and his girlfriend are getting away. I forgot to mention his girlfriend, by the way. She's just a normal girl, but she's, like, super in love with Thug Thatcher, so she can't leave him, even though she knows that he's a bad dude, I guess. Which is just a very boring take on a woman.
Maybe he's not a bad dude to her.
Well, they're getting away in a car, and Thor throws his hammer through a line of trees that's next to the road and knocks all of them down in front of the car to stop them. But they get away into the forest, I guess, and start heading into the city. Thor takes off to fly after them, but somehow Thug and his girl get back to Don Blake's office before Thor does. Not really sure how, but basically he's got a gun to Jane's head, and he says, if you don't throw down your hammer, I'll shoot her. So he does.
I do like that he has made the connection that nobody seems able to make, that, wow, this happened right in front of my eyes, and he seems to show up wherever the fuck Don Blake is.
Yeah. Well, he definitely notices that Thor's hammer is most of the trouble. So Thor's like, okay, I gotta do something without my hammer. The idea suddenly comes to Thor. Using his super developed vocal cords, he throws his voice across the room.
What? Okay, this is the best Thor power. Thor super ventriloquism.
Yes. He basically makes Thug think that the cops are outside, calling for him to drop his weapon. And Thug, turns to the window. He swivels his entire torso towards the window. He doesn't, move his head and keep the gun pointed at Jane, as any reasonable mobster would, I feel. He turns his entire self around, giving Thor the opening to not pick up his hammer, but kick his hammer to smack Thug in the hand and knock the gun away.
No, I gotta say, super ventriloquism is my favorite Thor power now.
Yeah.
This will come up again, right?
Yes.
So continue to be a super ventriloquist?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And a really cool soccer player. Kicking hammers.
Seems like it'd hurt.
Yeah, a little bit. So apparently kicking the hammer counts as throwing it so he can catch it again, which that is something worth noting, is that in these early comics, the hammer only came back to him if he threw it, whereas in later interpretations, the hammer would always come back to him, even if it was, like, sitting somewhere. And you see that in the movies and everything, too. And I prefer that, personally.
Yeah.
Because I think it only coming back when he throws it is, like, a really silly...
It's super gimmicky.
Yeah, it's a silly qualification.
That gets into some very silly Silver Age things where they find stupid loopholes and reasons for things not to work that should.
Yeah, exactly. He gets the hammer back. Jane is not tied to the chair anymore for some reason. I'm not sure why, because it wasn't addressed at all. But she gets out of the chair, and Thor is like, okay, I have to get Jane to a safe place. Let's throw her out a window. He spins his hammer so fast that he creates... It says it's an updraft, but it's, I don't know.
Tornado.
Like a tornado or a wind tunnel, and it shoots Jane out of a window. And then he flies out the window after her, and Thug Thatcher is shooting his gun at them. And he goes and he catches Jane, and people on the ground are like, what the fuck is happening? So Thug Thatcher leaves the office, and he goes up to this building that's under construction or being built or whatever. And he goes up on the service elevator.
Thug's girl has a name now.
Oh yeah, she has a name.
Ruby.
Ruby. She's cute. I like her.
Yeah.
But she is watching him go up this service elevator. She's like, Thug, you can't escape. Come back. Give yourself up. Take your medicine. I'll wait for you. I swear it. And he's like, shut up, and shoots at her. So what you said earlier about him being super nice to her, not true. He just tried to shoot her. So Thor saves her, and then he summons lightning. The lightning doesn't come out of the sky, it just comes out of his hammer. Which is fine, and I guess he just kind of, like, shoots it.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
He's melting shit!
Yeah, and also he's melting steel, which I don't think lightning does that.
I don't know, maybe it does. Any metallurgists out there who know the melting temperature of steel, shoot us an email at comicsplaining@gmail.com.
If you know if lightning can melt steel. Lightning doesn't melt steel beams. So, he's shooting lightning at him, it's melting the girders. But Thug sees a bucket of rivets that are red hot for some reason.
He's gonna pick that up with his bare hands?
Yes, and he picks up the bucket with his bare hands, which has red hot rivets in it, and he threatens to dump them on the people on the ground. Which is like, okay, fine, but you're touching the bucket that they're in, which should also be hot. So,
ow,
you're just branding yourself.
Thug, no!
So, Thor promises not to capture him so that he won't pour the hot rivets on him, but the girder that he's standing on buckles, and he starts falling. So, Thor flies up to save him, and drops him down, and he gets arrested by the cops again. He says, the reason I promised not to try to capture him was that I saw the girder he stood on was a faulty one, and that the heat of my lightning had weakened it.
It was Thug's steel! It was Thug's fucked up steel!
Yeah, faulty steel. It's probably the very stuff that Thatcher himself was forcing companies to buy.
That's why the lightning melted it.
Because it was bad.
Yeah.
Because of that old substandard steel. Then Thor lifts his gaze upward, silently asking Odin, the Lord of Asgard, for one more boon. And an instant later...
What the fuck?
An instant of what we mortals call time. The request is granted. The memory of Thug Thatcher is forever removed from her mind. She is free of her tragic love, free to find one who will be worthy of her. So basically, Thor asked Odin to erase Ruby's memory so that she wouldn't be in love with a monster.
Give her the
anymore.
old Vanisher treatment.
Yeah, just give her the old Xavier special.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. I understand the intent behind this is good, but Stan doesn't seem to understand that wiping people's memories is bad.
Yeah, morally not great.
Not great. Ruby isn't in love with Thug Thatcher anymore. I'm sure that won't come up again.
Man, I don't like that.
As for me, my work here is finished. I must return to my other life and to the girl who holds my heart, although I never dare admit it.
Wuss. So those are our issues for our first segments today. Last episode, we were talking about the different ages of comic books. And this has kind of come up a few times before. Like, we've talked about Silver Age comics versus normal comics. Or why the 90s maybe could be their own thing. So, I don't know. I thought that was worth getting into. We don't really talk much about the Golden Age of comics. There are some Golden Age comics that are in the Marvel Universe, but it's really nothing that we're covering yet. Mostly back the wartime comics. Captain America and Namor and all that stuff. That'll be all the Golden Age comics for Marvel. But usually you think Golden Age comics, what you think is more DC comics, Superman and Batman and just the real early stuff. And where we are now is the Silver Age. So, effectively, comics kind of went a little underground for a bit after the Golden Age. They fell from prominence after the early Golden Age for a bit. At least superhero comics did. Marvel even stopped publishing those titles pretty much. They'd run some stuff, but a lot of what they liked were like sci-fi comics and horror comics for a little bit, and Western comics were also a really big genre over that period of time. And then we came back to the Silver Age of comic books. And there are other things that happened there, but that's really when the Marvel Age kicks in, starting off with the Fantastic Four. And pretty much starting off most of the titles, the big names that we see come in that period. Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, the Avengers, the Incredible Hulk, all that stuff kind of starts hitting at once.
Yeah, that first appearance of Loki is actually part of the Golden Age.
Yeah, the one from Venus Comics.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get further into Venus Comics. If you want more to do with Venus Comics, you're just going to have to go back to episode 4.
Yeah. I don't know. Go read it yourself.
Yeah. So, the Silver Age is corny but sincere, is how I would describe the Silver Age.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's got a very Scooby-Doo vibe in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
The goofy coincidences, rubber masks, silly powers.
Mm-hmm.
It's sincere, but very silly. So that went on for a bit. And then around the 70s, we start getting to the Bronze Age, which is where writing starts to get a little more complex. There are darker plots. We'll get into real-life issues. Like, they mention here on this thing I'm looking at, drug use, poverty, and pollution. And I do recall seeing that especially a lot in Spider-Man. There are actually 3 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man that did not get the Comics Code seal of approval because they focused on drug addiction.
The Comics Code seal of approval is also something that we might talk about at a later date.
Yeah, there's some shit to say about the Comics Code. There's a lot of shit to say about the Comics Code.
Yes.
Especially considering that we approach this podcast from a queer perspective.
Yes.
There's a lot to say about the Comics Code.
Yes.
But we ain't ready for that tonight.
Maybe next episode, maybe.
Well, that kind of went on, and this is where things get a little fuzzy, because some people put the Bronze Age as going on for some time. Some people have the Bronze Age end a little early and move into something we call the Copper Age, which is another really well-known, I mean, it's not a frequently used term, but this is where you start getting a lot of the really well-known arcs of the 80s. Things like Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. Darker plots, even darker still than the Bronze Age, but very well-known plots diving into the nitty-gritty of characters.
Yeah.
That's where we start getting to that. And after that, people say the Modern Age starts, but I kind of have beef with that.
I would say that the 90s are their own thing, honestly.
I really think the 90s should be their own thing. I don't even think that you should say that the Copper Age is the 90s, because the 90s have their own artistic language.
Mhm.
They have their own writing things, because the 90s have a lot of, remember how we're having this progression of things getting darker and darker and darker. From the Silver Age is just light and corny Scooby-Doo shit. And then the Bronze Age is a little more realistic, and the Copper Age starts getting gritty. The 90s are the age of the extreme.
If you're reading through a full, comic list, you notice when you get to the 90s. It's notably different.
Especially around, I'd say, 1992. Everything is gritty. Everyone is Blood Axe,
Yeah.
Blood Rose, Knife Blade.
Yeah.
I don't think any of these are actual names. Oh, I hope they're not actual names. But these are all absolutely plausible 90s superhero names.
I can guarantee you that Blood Axe is a thing.
Oh my god. Who's Blood Axe?
I will look it up right now.
Alright, you look up Blood Axe, and I'll just keep jabbering for a bit. They also have their own artistic language, too. Things get action figure-y. Well, there are two different ways that they could go. They either get action figure-y or dark black leather. Lot of leather, a lot of corny shit, skulls and chains and fire. The 90s are just Ghost Rider personified.
You're not gonna believe this, but I knew Blood Axe was a real dude because he's a Thor guy.
Oh my god.
I totally
Blood
forgot.
Blood Axe looks like the Red Skull, but extreme.
Yeah. He looks like Red Skull mixed with Ghost Rider.
He really does. It's kind of awful. I love his skull knee pads.
Yeah. Yeah, he's from, let's see, last appearance September 1995.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
So where I would really start marking the modern age is around the early to mid 2000s is when we start getting away from the 90s. Everything is extreme. The writing is extreme. The plots are extreme. Everyone is a vigilante time traveler.
Rob Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld is there.
He continues to be there sometimes, but mostly we just ignore him and move on.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's where I like to draw the line, but I think it's really bizarre to consider the modern age starting back in the 80s, because it's really bizarre to consider modern stretching back 40 years.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I think that kind of comes from that weird thing where people think that the 2000s were recent.
Yeah, no. I have that moment every once in a while, especially when I'm talking to teenagers. It's like, oh, I was born in 2001. And I'm like, fuck, I remember 2001.
Like, that was 20 years ago, dude.
Vividly. You're an adult. Oh my god.
Yeah. Sorry to any younger listeners. We're old.
Yeah. Don't make me think about that.
We're not that old, actually. There's a lot of comic book podcasters who are way older than us.
Yeah, well, I'm turning 30 in 2 weeks.
Yes, you are.
God, make me feel fucking old. Anyway.
30 isn't old.
That's fair. But to me, I really feel like when you start seeing the modern approaches to writing, more deconstructed, spaced out arcs, that really doesn't start hitting until the early 2000s. A comic from the early 2000s may have some quirks, but it still reads very similarly to a recent comic to me.
The easiest point where I would mark the modern age is Thor Volume 3, because every Thor up to that point feels not modern. But that didn't start until 2007.
For me, the modern age really starts to feel apparent 2003 or 4. I'd say more 2004, but you can really make a sliding argument from anywhere from 2001, I think.
Yeah.
It just starts creeping in other titles. It's not so much a sea change as it is a shifting tide.
Yeah.
Slowly coming its way in.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that about wraps us up for today. Did you have anything else to mention?
Nope.
All right. Well, then with that said, next week we are going to be back with the X-Men, and we're just going to run through a few closing points here. If you want to review us on Podchaser or iTunes, we would really appreciate that. Hit us up on our social media. We are on Tumblr, Facebook, or Twitter, all Comicsplaining. Support us on Patreon, also Comicsplaining.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see a version of this show that includes clips of the things we're talking about when we're getting goofy and silly laughing about Thor making a funny face, you're going to be able to find that on the YouTube version of our show that we put out. That goes up every week.
Mm-hmm. So
go ahead and check that out. If you have anything to say about, I don't know, the fur coats the Russian guys were wearing, by all means, shoot us an email, comicsplaining@gmail.com. Other than that, join our Marvel Puzzle Quest Alliance. We are the number 6, the number 1, the word fix, as in fixing your car. 6-1-fix. We always need more members, and we play pretty frequently. There are 4 of us, and we are trying to get through all this stuff.
Yeah. Team-up events are a little bit difficult with only 4 people.
Yes.
So, if you want to join us, you can get some free stuff out of it. And you can also talk to us in the chat, I guess. Who uses Marvel Puzzle Quest chat?
I hate that there are no moderation tools.
Yeah. I'm gonna do a couple promos really quick. First of all, if you feel like it's something you'd be into, please check out my webcomic. It is on tapis.io/series/ephemeris, EPHEMERIS. Check it out. It has almost 10 pages now, which is exciting. More exciting than it sounds. You can also catch me playing D&D every Sunday on twitch.tv/droptune.
Alright, that's gonna wrap us up for this week. Like I said before, we'll be back next week with the X-Men. So we look forward to talking to you then. Bye!
Bye!